Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're doing something a little different for this deep dive.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to be looking at health and progress,
okay.
but through kind of a different lens this time.
Interesting.
We've got some excerpts from Bright Illusionen, Balance for Helsa or Framstig.
Okay, yeah.
And it's really interesting stuff. It kind of flips the script on what we're always told about how to achieve peak performance.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we always see those like perfect routines from athletes and influencers?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So like, what if that's not the whole picture?
Right, yeah. It's like we only see the highlight reel,
Let's
not
see.
the behind the scenes struggles.
Yeah.
This source actually talks about that illusion of perfect health.
Uh,
Especially for high performance athletes.
right.
You see them pushing their bodies to the absolute limit, but like, what is that doing to them?
I know. It really makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes of all those like perfect Instagram posts.
Yeah,
Right.
like, is it actually healthy? And this source even says that, like, for every pro athlete out there, there's probably another one who had to quit because they pushed themselves too hard for too long.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, they did all the right things, but it just wasn't sustainable.
Yeah. That's a really sobering thought.
Yeah.
And it kind of like challenges that more is always better
Mm,
mentality, right?
totally.
That we hear a lot in the fitness world.
Yeah.
So if going all out isn't the answer, what is?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
This source talks about balance and consistency over intensity,
Okay.
especially for long-term well-being.
Right.
Instead of just trying to hit 100% all the time.
Uh-huh.
It's more about finding that sweet spot where you're challenging yourself,
Okay.
but you're also giving your body and mind the time to recover and grow stronger.
I mean, I gotta say, that goes against pretty much all the fitness advice I feel like I've ever heard.
Right.
Yeah. It's like
It's different.
it's like you're giving us permission to
Yeah.
kind of ease up a bit and focus on the long game.
Exactly. Like slow and steady wins the race kind of thing.
Okay, but how do we know who to trust? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so much information out there and it always feels like everyone's contradicting each other.
That's a great point.
So who do we listen to?
Well, the source talks about that too.
Okay.
It uses this funny analogy about how you don't want to just take advice from someone who's sitting in their mom's basement,
Right.
eating cereal out of a plastic bowl.
Uh-huh.
Just because someone looks the part doesn't mean they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's like those influencers with perfect lives, right?
Right.
You never know what's really going on.
Exactly. So it's about being discerning
Okay.
and like really thinking critically about the information that you're getting
It's so true.
and, not just following blindly.
Right.
So in this source, there's this idea of a 90 to 95% effort workout routine versus like a 60 to 80% approach.
Can you break that down for me?
Sure. So imagine you've got two people, right?
Okay.
One is always pushing themselves to the max.
Like that 90 to 95%.
Exactly.
Okay.
And at first it seems great,
Yeah.
super dedicated. But what often happens is you
Yeah.
start to accumulate fatigue.
Hmm.
You get a few nagging injuries here and there.
Yeah.
And then eventually it leads to more serious setbacks.
Oh, so you have to like really scale back.
Yeah, you have to start all over again, basically.
Oh, wow.
So it becomes this cycle of pushing and crashing and then having to rebuild.
That sounds exhausting.
It can be. Now imagine this other person who's taking that 60 to 80% approach.
Okay.
They're focusing on consistent effort,
Uh-huh.
giving their body adequate recovery time.
Right.
This way they make steady progress.
Okay.
They're less likely to get injured.
Yeah.
And they can keep going even on the days when they don't feel 100%.
Right.
So they're more likely to stick with it for the long haul.
Okay. So it's less about those like bursts of intense effort and more about building those sustainable habits.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then the source even mentions that someone consistently putting in 70 to 80% effort
Yeah.
can end up surpassing the person who's always pushing themselves to the max.
Oh, like the tortoise and the hare, but for fitness.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's about consistency over time.
Okay, but I'm thinking about athletes,
Yeah.
like the ones who train at incredibly high intensities. Like, isn't pushing your limits how you achieve breakthrough performance?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And that's where this concept of supercompensation comes in.
Okay, I've heard of that, but I don't really know what it means.
Yeah, so basically the author explains that when you're constantly pushing to the absolute limit,
Uh-huh.
your body doesn't actually have enough time to fully recover and adapt.
So it's like pushing a rubber band to its breaking point every single time,
Exactly.
and eventually it's going to snap.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So supercompensation is about giving your body the time and resources it needs to rebuild and come back stronger.
So you're actually hindering your long-term progress by constantly redlining it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Huh. That's a real mind shift.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the physical side of things,
Yeah.
but what about the mental side?
Oh, yeah, that's super important.
Because the source also talks about the importance of finding joy in the process, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another huge piece of the balance puzzle.
Okay.
It's not just about the physical effort, but also the mental and emotional well-being.
So it's not about like grinding through workouts that you hate.
No, not at all. When you genuinely enjoy what you're doing, it becomes more sustainable,
Right.
and you're more likely to stick with it in the long run.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's about finding activities that energize you, not drain you.
But sometimes it feels like you have to kind of force yourself to do things you don't enjoy to reach your goals, you know?
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
But this source gives some really practical advice about how to shift that mindset. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight,
Right.
start with small, sustainable changes.
Oh,
Find activities you actually look forward to.
yeah.
Prioritize rest and recovery just as much as you prioritize pushing yourself.
I love that it feels a lot more manageable than trying to become a whole new person tomorrow.
Right. And the source also challenges this idea that you need to be on all the time.
Mm.
The author actually shifts their physical and mental focus throughout a project.
Okay. I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so basically, in the beginning, the focus is on like building that solid foundation,
Okay.
creating healthy habits.
Right.
So that's where that 90% physical, 10% mental focus comes in.
Okay.
You're really prioritizing things like sleep, nutrition, exercise,
Right.
and making sure your body has enough time to recover.
So it's like you're setting yourself up for success from the inside out.
Exactly.
I like that.
And then as you move forward and get closer to your goals,
Mm.
the focus kind of gradually shifts.
Okay.
It becomes more about, developing that mental edge, that resilience that you need to perform at your best.
So instead of just like the physical grind,
Right.
you're starting to incorporate more of the mental preparation and strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like training for a marathon, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't just focus on running miles and miles every day.
Right.
You would also incorporate things like mental training and visualization
Exactly.
and, strategies for race day.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
It makes a lot of sense.
And I think that's where a lot of us can kind of get tripped up,
Yeah.
We get so focused on that initial go hard phase
Yeah.
that we forget about the mental and emotional side of things.
Yeah. It's like we're trying to build a house without the blueprint,
Totally.
or even thinking about like the landscaping.
Right.
Yeah.
And this source really emphasizes that holistic approach. It's about recognizing that progress isn't just about like crossing the finish line, but it's also about the journey,
Right.
the growth,
Yeah.
the resilience you build along the way.
Thinking back on like my own experiences, I've definitely fallen into that trap of pushing myself too hard
Yeah.
without really giving enough attention to the mental and emotional side of things.
Uh-huh.
There was this one time when I was training for a half marathon,
Yeah.
and I was so focused on hitting my mileage goals
Okay.
that I totally neglected my sleep and nutrition.
Oh, no.
And I ended up getting injured and having to drop out.
Yeah, I think we've all been there in some way.
Yeah.
So this is a good reminder that it's
Yeah.
about finding that balance between pushing yourself and giving yourself grace.
It's like remembering that rest and recovery are just as important as those workouts
Yeah, exactly.
where you're pushing yourself.
Yeah, and the source also talks about how it's important to adapt your approach depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
So, some goals might need more physical effort up front,
Yeah.
and others might need more mental or strategic focus right from the start.
It's about finding the right approach for you.
Yeah. It's not one size fits all. The source really encourages you to be your own coach
Okay.
and figure out what works best for you and your needs.
I really like that. That's empowering.
It is.
This whole conversation is making me rethink my definition of success. It's not just about achieving the goal.
Right.
It's about the journey and how you grow along the way.
That's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
It's about creating a lifestyle that supports your well-being,
Yeah.
both physically and mentally.
Right, and like feeling good.
Exactly, like feeling energized and resilient and excited
Yeah.
to tackle whatever challenges come up.
Okay, so if we could kind of like boil all of this down into a few key takeaways,
Yeah.
what would you say are the most important things for our listeners to remember?
I would say first, rethink your definition of progress.
Okay.
It's not about striving for perfection.
Right.
It's about finding what works best for you
Yeah.
and your individual circumstances.
Yeah.
Like what energizes you,
Mhm.
what brings you joy,
Yeah.
what makes you feel your best.
What's defining success on your own terms?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then secondly, embrace balance in all areas of your life.
Okay.
So prioritize rest and recovery just as much as you prioritize effort and pushing yourself.
Right.
It's not about being on all the time.
Yeah.
It's about finding that rhythm that allows you to recharge.
Just finding that sweet spot
Yes.
between pushing your limits and honoring your need to rest.
Exactly. And then lastly, don't be afraid to adjust your approach
Okay.
as needed because life is always changing.
Right.
So being adaptable is key.
Yeah.
If something isn't working, try something different. Experiment. Listen to your body.
Right.
Find what feels best for you.
This has been such a great deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
Given me so much to think about.
Your feet.
We'll be right back after a short break to wrap up our exploration of Bright Illusionen. Balans för hälsa or Framsteg. Welcome back. We've been having such a good conversation
Yeah.
about Bright Illusionen, Balans för hälsa or Framsteg,
It's a good one.
and how it really
Yeah.
challenges those ideas of
Mhm.
success and well-being.
It really makes you think twice about those.
I know.
Those no pain, no gain mantras we hear all the time.
Totally. And I love how this source
Yeah.
emphasizes balance,
Yeah.
sustainability,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
actually finding joy in the process.
It's not about punishing yourself
Right.
to reach some arbitrary goal.
Exactly.
You know?
It's so refreshing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like one of the biggest takeaways for me is that
Yeah.
we don't have to subscribe to someone else's idea of perfect.
Right.
This source is all about like a more
Yeah.
personalized approach.
Exactly. It's about figuring out what works for you,
Yeah.
not just blindly following someone else's rules.
This whole conversation has been so empowering, honestly. It's
Yeah.
like we've been given the tools to like
Yeah.
step off the hamster wheel and like
Yeah.
design a life that
Yeah.
really aligns with our values and goals.
It's about thriving, not just surviving.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, you know.
Well, a huge thank you to you for this incredible deep dive.
It's been a pleasure being here.
I don't know about you, but I'm definitely walking away
Yeah.
feeling really inspired to rethink my definition of progress and like
Yeah.
find that balance between effort and ease.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll leave you with a thought-provoking question
Uh-uh.
from Brett Illusionen.
Okay.
Think about all the areas of your life where you're striving for progress.
Yeah.
Where could you benefit from maybe
Yeah.
embracing a little more balance?
It's a good question.
And what small changes can you make today to create a more sustainable and joyful journey?
Love it.
Keep diving deep, everyone.
Until next time.